Hi, everyone. My name is Dave Haynes. Our session now in this town hall is North America, the promised land for European companies. I know a lot of people in this room. There's a lot of potential hecklers, so I'll ask security to keep an eye on people. If you want to expand into Canada and North America in general, you can stay at my house for a couple of days, but that's it.
Excellent.
I live in Nova Scotia, east coast of Canada. I've always lived there, so I'm always hearing about European companies expanding into North America. And when they ask me, I say, great, but just be aware it's probably not as easy as you think. And these three companies come at it from very different angles. They have different experiences and so on. So rather than me mangling names, particularly yours, if you could introduce yourself and explain what your company does and kind of where you are in terms of North America. Navori in particular is very well established there.
Yeah,
made that decision like 20 years ago.
Yeah, absolutely. So my name is Hugues. I'm the senior key account manager at Navori. And actually, as you mentioned, we are definitely well implemented in North America. Actually, since now more than 15 years, we were quite probably a pioneer as a European company to, I would say, open an entity in Montreal and to cross, I would say, the Atlantic. And that's true that I think Navori is a good witness of the several tries of European software vendors that tested, I would say, their fortune in North America. We often say that the grass is always greener on the other side, but it's definitely more complex than that, definitely. And yeah, I think one of the key points is to have some local people on the field, on the ground, to have a technical support team locally to support as much as possible the customers. Because the structure of the market in the US is completely, I would say, it's not probably well estimated by the European software vendors, meaning that beyond some very huge system integrators like AVI, Diversify, StrataCache, Moonmedia, these kind of companies, there is a ton of small and medium resellers. So if you don't have some local people, it's very complicated to penetrate this market. And it's probably one of the reasons why we are so successful in North America today at Navori is the fact that we just harvest the fruits of a huge work that has been on since many years now.
All right, SignageOS.
Hey, so my name is Mirek. I'm with SignageOS, and we are the middleware for digital signage. We are playing the middle guy between hardware and software providers, basically taking the headache of having to support multiple platforms, all by our internal resources, and it's coupled together with the device management. So we're gonna do the remote management for any of your digital signage devices, including things like playback, proof of play, and things like that. And we can do it. And about 80% of our business comes from North America. We are a fairly young company. We're about 6 years. And I have myself helped to build and expand companies to North America. So it's as simple as it looks and sounds, and it's also as difficult as it sounds. So everybody can buy a plane ticket. And well, the question is what you do when you land, right? And I do immigration, and you explain them that you're just starting the business. And I'm sure we're going to touch on some of the difficulties and challenges. Yeah.
I hadn't thought about that part, but yeah, that's
I'm a global entry, so I haven't been doing it for a while, but I know it's obviously something that there are some practicalities, like small and big ones, that you have to go through. And yeah, I'd love to share my experience with how to actually do it right. Talk about all the mistakes, quite a few I personally made, and I'd like to have as many people as you can to avoid them. So. And in case you don't want to stay at Dave's house, we have a small presence in San Francisco. So if Halifax doesn't do it for you, then San Francisco could. Also only for a few days, though.
James.
Yes, I'm James Keane. I'm the VP of Marketing for Uniguest, who we're actually a US business. So it might seem strange that I'm sat here. 60% of our business is US. But if you don't know Uniguest, we've recently in the last 4 or 5 years, acquired a number of digital signage brands that were traditionally European. One Land, Triple Play, Outram, three that people might have heard of. And so prior to Uniguest, I was a part of the Triple Play team and helped the business establish in the US, very UK European focused business, and helped us grow into the US market and learn from our own mistakes and expanded our revenue streams into the AV channels. So like Hugues said, there are some big challenges there. You need feet on the ground. I think one of the other things that I think we established pretty quickly is that you can't consider the US one country. Absolutely not. We all work for companies who probably have sales managers for one country in Europe, and yet often the first mistake is that you think you can have one country manager for the United States, and that doesn't work. So that was one of the early mistakes, early realizations that we came to. But it's been quite an interesting journey working for a company that was essentially a US startup, pushing into that space with very little business, to now being owned by an entirely US org who very well established, and so it's been a really good learning experience for me.
And has that made it easier? Simply that Uniguest has an office, or its main office, in Nashville. You had, as a company, an established kind of footprint and base, as opposed to SignageOS coming in kind of cold and as a pure startup.
It does help. I mean, I think there's still quite a US-centric approach taken by a lot of US businesses. They like to work with US businesses, and the minute you've got that registered physical address, it does relieve a lot of stress and a lot of anxiety on their side. I think also, so we now have maybe 4 or 5 offices around the US, and that gives us that stability that people quite like. It also it gives us the regional focus people quite like. And it allows us to trade internationally a lot easier. I think, like I said, going back to my Triple Play experience, the growth in the US was non-existent. We had 2 or 3 clients who did a fairly small amount of revenue until we got feet on the ground. We didn't really see growth. We didn't really see expansion. It wasn't until that signature was put on the physical contract on an address that finally we were taken seriously as a player in the US and North America.
I read a trade publication about digital signage, and so I get a lot of press releases, including ones from all these companies. And when I get them from SignageOS, and if I write something and I reference the company as the Prague firm SignageOS, I will invariably get an email from somebody saying, "We're actually based in San Francisco." And then I push back and say, "Well, all you guys are in Prague, though." So I'm curious, how important is it, to your point, to at least optically establish that, we are a U.S. company?
It's a necessary step, I think, to be taken seriously. It's not the only one. So you do have to do a couple other things, not just putting a website where it says you're in San Francisco. You have to get yourself on a plane and spend a hell of a time in North America to understand the market before you start hiring more people. So when you start building a company, it's really important to start early on building a global company where you just say, we are not a European company, we are not a US company, we are a global company. And this is our market where we're going to go after, right? Like, you have all the developers in the Czech Republic, it doesn't matter. We don't have we have 2 customers in the Czech Republic, but so I think it's important. It's not the only step. If we only did that, I don't think so that would work. But we also spend a hell of a time in the US. I've lived there for 12 years, and you have to relate to people you deal with. It depends who you're selling to. It's really important. Like, small businesses will act differently than the large companies. If you're selling to McDonald's, they probably know how to deal with the companies that's from abroad. If you're gonna work with a small QSR, and they probably don't even know how to wire money abroad. So you have to build all the different components in order to be successful. And I believe this is just one of them. It's not the only one. I don't think that you can do it without it. So, we like to say fake it to make it. Like, if you don't have all the resources to hire 5, 6 people on the ground right away, that's just, you do it in stages. But you have to do it right. It's just not the address. It's not just the boots on the ground. It's doing it the right way and right steps. So thanks for mentioning San Francisco for us.
So with Navori, you've got how many people in Montreal?
Approximately 25. Between the sales, the technical team, and the admin team, approximately 25 people, yeah.
So it's quite a substantial office, and is it
Yes.
actually bigger than Lausanne?
It's more or less the same.
Yeah.
But from Lausanne, we are managing, I would say, the European market, but also the Asian market and the African market. So that means that in North America, with the same number of people, we just manage North American and South American market.
So are you almost considered at this point, because you have been there a long time, as a company, are you even thought of as a European company, or you've
No, we
got?
are a global company, definitely. Actually, of course, the headquarters is in Switzerland, but we consider Navori as a global company, and I fully agree with Mirek, meaning that when you want to target a market, the US market, you need to be a global company and not just a European or an American market.
I just to any of you, I've heard. Actually, I was just speaking to a company who said they have a manufacturer's rep now established in the U.S., and that's their sales footprint. And it's been my experience that, well, that's a good start. That's not going to get you anywhere near the promised land, because they might be selling other stuff as well. They're not fully kind of enrolled sometimes in your product. They don't know it. They're kind of an extension of the company as part of it. Has that been your experience?
I couldn't agree more. Distribution has its place, and don't get me wrong, I know Jenny's in the room from Midwich High. I'm not criticising distribution at all. But distributors have shared split focus. I think anyone trying to break a new market will know, and this is particularly pertinent in the US because of the scale and size of the territory, is that you have to go in there with focus. You have to be an evangelist. You have to understand your technology, your product intrinsically to be able to get the value across to the potential new audience. You also have to pick your states, pick your cities, pick your markets and verticals that you feel your product is best for. Now, distribution is going to be vague. It's going to be general. It's going to be based on the product. And this is a digital signage box, and this is a digital signage software. Yes, it will suit your need. Whereas what you need to do to really establish yourself is figure out which markets are going to work for you. Now, we already all know that anyway, because we've been doing business in Europe, in APAC, in the Middle East, and we know where our product fits. So for us, we know sports, stadium, corporate, banking, education, a bit of government. But when we went there, we were like, right, let's focus on corporate. We've got global contracts with people. Let's grow into that. Let's get into the sports, into the stadiums, and really build that. It's almost like risk. You build your strength in one area and then start expanding out. And I think that's where you as a business have to take the lead, and you have to push the value that you offer in those markets. But again, like I say, focus on New York, Boston, Orlando, San Francisco. Pick a major conurbation that has the infrastructure to support this technology as well, because a lot of Middle America doesn't have the infrastructure in place to support IP-based communication, signage, IPTV. So, and I think that's where, as a business, you're better off being there, feet on the street, selling the product, selling the value, selling the digital engagement concepts and possibilities, rather than relying on a distributor who's also got to sell another 15 different technologies to that same person. They're just never going to naturally have that focus. And I think that's it's not a mistake to make that step. It establishes you, can get you that little bit of run rate business, a bit of brand exposure, but ultimately you have to then step into their place and help them do their job. And there can be a happy marriage between the two if you get it right.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I'd say yeah and no. I think having 5 people or 10 people on the ground, if it's not built in your company DNA, this is what you want to do, is not going to cut it either. So like hoping that you're going to hire a single guy who worked for your competition and they got miraculously overnight selling your stuff only because they're local, it's not going to happen. I think what you have to do is to really build your company culture around like the global effort. And if you want to focus on North America, just make it your focus. And internally, like our, obviously all of our developers are Czech, but our internal language is English. We always keep saying stories about our customers so they understand this is what we want to do. So they don't have this internal feeling, well, if I do this for the small customer, it's from around the corner, that's going to be better. And a lot of European companies or overseas companies from the US standpoint make the same mistake where there is this internal fight over priorities. And if they are European based, they're like, yeah, you can do better, right? Like you have this almost like a war like between sales and marketing between Americans and Europeans, where Europeans are very proud of themselves and sometimes they really think that they can do better. So removing that friction from the very beginning and building the culture of global expansion and hiring more people and bringing some people from Europe to the US to experience that can help. So there's like a couple of things to do it. So I'd say yes, having one guy not gonna do it, but also having multiple people without the proper culture that's behind it is not gonna help you either. So I think starting early on and bringing that that culture of diversity and global expansion is really, really crucial.
It seems like an obvious answer, but I'm going to ask the question anyways. Why do European companies need to expand into the United States and Canada? Because they're very, very crowded markets. It's not like, please God, somebody bring a digital signage solution to North America. There's lots of them already. So is it just Europe is capped out or other markets are capped out? If you're going to grow your business, you have to be here too, or there too?
I'd say it's if you're a startup, North America is the single largest market for you, no matter what you do. It's a digital signage, security. They all speak the same language. There are differences, and obviously it's not like the homogeneous market, but it's a one market where you can target audience all at once. So if you start early as a startup, it's much easier when you succeed in North America to expand back to Europe rather than the other way around. Like success in North America is getting a lot more credit than success in Germany, France, Italy, or somewhere else because European companies care about success in America. American companies don't really give a much about success in Europe.
So it's sort of credibility around it.
Oh yeah,
and trust.
Yeah, I think
it's the hardest
we look across
the crowded market. So I think when you succeed in the most crowded market, it's your NHL, it's your NFL, right? Like you want to get the Super Bowl. You don't want to compete in second, third tier league in order to be recognized. So go for the big win.
Navori decided very, very early on
Yeah.
to be in North America, right?
Yes, actually, since 15 years, I would say now. And I would say the idea of my CEO it has been always to be a global company and just not to focus on a specific area. So that's the reason why he understood very early that he needs to, I would say, go on the other side of the Atlantic to, I would say, make sufficient revenue as a global company to reinvest in R&D, to, I would say, every year release some new features and not to stay as a European company only.
You mentioned something interesting about global entry and that there are registration aspects, immigration aspects, all kinds of things that maybe a company in Europe isn't thinking about, that they're going to run into this wall when they show up in an airport or get into the country and want to build their business there. What do these companies need to know?
Start early on. It's a long process. Good part is a very transparent process. So if you follow all the steps, you will get there. By getting the permits, or if you're an investor, you can get an investor visa, and it's very easy and very transparent process, but it takes time. So I would say starting a company is an online process. You just hire a small law firm that's going to help you out with that. That's fine. And just, plan early on for all those steps ahead because you will need time to get them all finished.
Very personal experience, isn't it?
No, I think I think people complain about it all the time, but I think it's transparent. So if you are, I would recommend smaller boutique immigration firm that have their instance out so they can help you to accelerate the process. But if you want to present and do business in person in America, is one of the things that you have to go through.
Yeah, I know when Triple Play established in the US, our rep who went out there, you start getting trouble and problems with leaving and coming back within a certain period, and so you have to be very careful how you plan your diary and making sure you're not 100% committed either way, and it does cause that there are red tape problems.
You have to know what you say at the airport, right?
Yes, yeah. Learn your script.
I've
And more importantly, what not to say.
Yes.
Even just coming from Canada.
Yeah.
And try to explain if you're digital signage infrastructure software, trying to explain to immigration officer what you do.
Yeah. I usually just say, in the McDonald's, you know, the menus, it's on a screen. That's what I do.
Yeah.
It's
Thank you. That's what we do.
it seems to work. Are there distinctions between the North American market and the European market in terms of business needs and how they work and how they want to engage with you? The contracts are they pushing more for on-prem or SaaS, or is security more important?
I might be speaking out of turn a little, but I think from our point of view, we're still selling at a slightly different level in the US to where we sell now in Europe. So we're starting to find that in Europe and the UK, there's a lot more involvement from, let's say, traditionally non-technical people, so people like me, marketing people who want to get involved in buying decisions when it comes to digital signage. Like I said, the last year Invisco was business critical, and it is business critical commoditized now for a lot of organizations. I think in the US still there is, from our perspective, quite a technical sell. So you do engage with IT managers, IT directors, AV managers. So that's a slight difference culturally, where there is still and I think that some of that comes down to security. So security concerns. You're putting this new stuff on the network. I know going to New York and trying to sell IPTV, and everyone telling us it couldn't be done. It wasn't legal. You couldn't do it compliant, and figuring out with them and walking them through the process to show what the rest of the world have been doing for the last 10, 15 years. It was quite an interesting slow progress. So there's a little bit of lag, I think, in the US in terms of ownership of this kind of technology that I think you have to be aware of when you go there. So let's say, we tend to have two messages, a message for the rest of the world, a message for North America that we have to flip between, depending on who we're talking to. But I think that's one of the key cultural elements. And then, like I said, the other side is not to assume that America is one place, and that every state is going to be. Canada is completely different to the US, as you know, and everywhere has its own set of cultural beliefs and opinions and infrastructural setup and needs and requirements and types of business that operate there. You don't tend to get the large corporates in Middle America. You get them on the coasts, and so you have to really compartmentalize, segmentalize the US and really give yourself focus and understand that you're going to encounter a different culture in every state you step into, and yeah.
I suspect you've also learned to be very neutral in your conversations, right? Like don't bring up politics.
And then never call a Canadian American. I learned that from our old CEO.
Yeah.
No, you don't want to do that.
I think you said like European companies. I don't think that many European companies would agree there is such a thing as a European company. There's German company, there's French company, Italian companies, Dutch company. Dutch are going to be honest to the point that you think that they're actually insulting you. They're not. They're just Dutch.
There's that.
Pardon. But if you talk about America, it's the same thing. The cost of developer use as a metric is going to be different in Boise, Idaho than San Francisco. So you do have to adopt the message when you actually do talk to those individual markets. So I think in general, like contracts, you get a lot more red lines around liabilities in the US. Like Europeans care a lot less about that part because access to legal systems slightly different, or usage of that legal systems, they're different. So it takes sometimes a lot shorter time to do the business negotiation and a lot longer have a legal involved with North American companies. With Europeans, it's the other way around. A lot of times it's just about like securing the deal and having this agreement in principle. Once you have that, the legal process seems a little more streamlined. But other than that, let's say, it's very different for Germany, for France, for the UK.
Time has flown here. I got time for one more question here. We've got a couple minutes. So I think I'd just like to ask each of you for a piece of advice for the folks who are sitting in here who are starting to expand into North America or thinking about it. And if you had one piece of advice to tell them before they pull the trigger, so to speak, what would it be? Navori, you're already there.
Yeah, I think you need to you have to invest money because it takes time. So if you don't have the money behind, it will be very complicated to be successful because you need time to build the ecosystem, to build, I would say, the relationship with the different resellers and system integrators. So it's very important also to have the capabilities in terms of money to on the long way to be behind, definitely.
Right. Mirek.
Make it priority. Make it the priority. If you want to be successful, make it a priority for the entire company.
And for me, understanding your own business strengths and weaknesses, and then obviously in American style, dream big. They love the dream. Go for it.
All right. Well, thank you very much for spending a little time with us. Hopefully this was helpful to people. And if you're coming to my place, please call ahead. Don't just show up at the door. All right. Thank you.
Thank you.
Be good.